Good morning. So today I thought about making a video that will show the proper way to remove a laptop power jack. You know, when you trip over it and you got to replace the jack itself. This is actually from a desktop computer, but it's one of those ones that uses kind of a laptop form factor inside and also uses a, you can see it there. It also uses a laptop type jack right there. So I'll give you a little backstory. In my business, a computer shop, I actually got to a point where I stopped doing this jack replacement, but I would take on the occasional job by giving the customer a caveat that I may ruin the board, because I guess my technique was terrible, but it was all I knew at that time. This is well before, having proper soldering tools, and without a microscope and all of that. And I guess I wasn't really wanting to go any deeper down that rabbit hole, but then I started seeing some creators on YouTube and completely binge watched everything I can get my hands on regarding micro soldering. And what I've learned in just a few months, it's astounding how much can change. Like I've said before, imagine this being a board in a laptop, right? And let's just say this board costs $200, okay? So if this board costs $200 and I charge $60 labor, 1 hour labor to put it in, as a general rule, I don't jack my prices up on parts so much. It's just not the way I do business. So imagine this costs $200 and $60 labor to remove it and put the new one in. What if I could fix it? Let's say, I don't know, let's say it's this capacitor that's blown. Now I can try to test for that, and if I can find the part, the actual component that's messed up, I can replace this for next to nothing. Charge them $99 for the repair of the board, so I make $99 plus $60, so I'm $100 better off, and they saved $100 for not having to replace the board. See, it works for everybody. Okay, getting back to that. So what I would do before I got my upgraded equipment here is I would go into this with some like wire cutters and demolish this piece by piece until I ended up with just a little metal piece here and a little metal pole there that goes in the center, and the back, you see those copper things right there. Once I would have those left over, I could hit my solder iron on the back and just pull them out one by one. I would do this and put this off the edge of my bench and hold it with some pliers and hit my soldering iron right there and then just pop it right off. And I found that in many cases I would damage the board. So and the one lead that is the easiest to damage is that little tiny one in the back. Okay, you've got a bunch of ground wires, but the positive wire, the pin in the middle, it's just that one there, that's tiny. And then there would be several times where that little tiny thing right there is damaged. And if it is, you're screwed. You really are. And then that's when I have to call the customer and say, well, it didn't work, so we got to replace the whole board, $200. Okay? All right, so I'm going to switch over to microscope mode. Stand by. Okay, we're now in the microscope, and if there's anything I can complain about with this microscope setup is that it's too good. I have a small paper clip, like the smaller versions, and let me tell you, that is the small side of it. So you can see, you can see what small kind of thing we're looking at. This is the notorious pin that always gets messed up right there. Right there. So what we're going to do is remove this the proper way. Like I say before, I would just hit one of these with solder until I could get it to pull out the other side, which was complete waste of time and damaged things a lot. Okay, there's this lens that you can get called a Barlow lens. I am going to treat myself with one of these soon because it will actually scale back so you see a larger part of the board. Because, I mean, this is great, but you can't really see the whole picture. That's the front of that jack. Let's see if I can kind of... That's where the jack power plugs into that. So first thing we want to do, I'm going to kind of focus on the rear ones here. First thing we want to do is heat the board up just a bit. We use our heat station here. Basically, this will help the solder melt a little quicker. We just want to melt it, or we want to heat it up enough so we can start to see a little melting happening. Alright, I'm going to leave it at that. And the next thing we want to do is throw some flux on here. Flux is always good to use, helps keep the solder flowing and whatnot. Alright, so got that on there. Now we want to take our soldering iron and try to put some lower melting point solder or leaded solder on here and mix it with the regular solder that's on here. Sorry, this is kind of precarious. We want to make sure we try to mix it with the solder that's on here. See, there we go. See that? It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter if we bridge any of these for now. Like, that's bridging is when you have two things here that kind of trying to do it here. When you have 2 points that bridge, like, there we go, that's a solder bridge. So it doesn't really matter if that happens right now because we're going to be taking all this off anyway. So what you want to do is get all of the points just like that. Okay. In earlier videos you may have seen where you've got one of these where it where the solder kind of sticks to the side rather than completely incorporates itself like that. See, all you got to do is touch it and it melts. That's what we're looking at. Whereas this one right here doesn't do that. I mean, it starts to, but we want it to where it's real easy to melt. All right, getting there. And this one has like 8 or 9 solder points on it. All right, and these two right here are another component. So we got, sorry, one of these days I'm going to get something that holds this a little better. All right, And lastly, these two things here are plastic, so we don't want to mess those up. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter because we're removing this. All right, looks like we got one more. So you can see the difference if you're losing track. You got those 5 there and these 3 in the front and then 1 left in the middle. You can see how it looks like the old soldering job. All right, and then we'll hit that. All right, there's a bridge right there. Doesn't matter, that's fine. All right, so now this is when we basically can hit our heat gun in this area, and this thing should literally fall off. I mean, that's pretty much how it will go. So let me get my heat gun ready. Be right back. Okay, I put some weight on the back of the board so it's not going to slide around as much. And I also put a non-skid thing underneath it. Okay, so again, this right here is the front where you plug it in. And first thing before I do anything, I want to see if I can, like I say, once I get a little lens, a Barlow lens on here, I can scale back a bit. But if you can visualize the jack, I'm going to put some tweezers in the front of it just to have a little downward pressure. And then I'm going to hit all of this with the heat. Here we go, the heat. I have 50% airflow on this for anybody who uses this kind of situation at 480 Celsius, so that's pretty hot. So this should literally melt in almost no time. This is way easier than using the way where I would literally I would literally tear it apart and pull it out piece by piece. This is way easier. So it feels like it's almost glued in there or something because everything is liquid. So give a little downward pressure. Come on. There we go. Give it a little downward pressure. And we're kind of melting it, and that's okay. It came out, obviously. I'm trying to pick it up. There we go. And this way, we didn't damage any of the pins. See if I can get this up. Focus. Right. So we didn't damage any pins. Now, it doesn't matter if we did, because in practical experience, if you are replacing this, there's something wrong with the jack to begin with. So it doesn't matter if you bend it or mess it up, but that's a good indication that the board itself, we did a really good job at not damaging the board. So you've got that back one. This is the one that's notoriously damaged. So that looks pretty good, actually. So now to prep this for, there we go. To prep this for inserting the new one, installing the new one, I'm going to throw a little flux on there. And this is why it didn't really matter if we were bridging anything, because we're going to come in with soldering iron and just kind of clean it up. And I'll tell you too, one thing that's interesting, I used to solder this to like this right here to make it liquid. Then I would jam a wire through it and almost like drill it out, and that was so stupid. But now I've learned better ways of doing things. All right, here we go. See that turning silver? Yeah. Now you might not get everything at one time, and you might also solder this to the board, which just happened. There we go. You got to keep cutting the ends of this off, because the more you use it, the more it gets on there. All right, let's see what we can do. See, we have other tools, so we don't necessarily expect to get everything at once. We have other ways of getting the solder off of here, and we can try those. But we want to get these big lumps of solder off of here. Ideally, what we want in the end is we want all of them to look like that, but cleaner. Yeah, look at that. That's like straight from the factory clean. Let me wipe this tip off just a bit. There we go. All right, just clean that off a little bit. That looks a lot better. And you know, again, a lot of people can do this in a matter of 2 minutes. Done. But A, I'm explaining it as I go, and B, it's one of those things where you know, you just have to have patience, and if you take your time and have patience, it's you get better results, and you have less a chance of breaking anything or destroying anything. That one went straight through. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it'll suck it back from the other side. I think I'm going to try to do most of these that way. See if we can get it through there. Try to get sort of in that hole. It kind of wants to. Yeah, it's very close. All right. So then we'll hit this middle one here. Just got to take your time. All right. So gonna put a little more flux on this middle part here. You just go through it, you know, keep going around and around until you get it just right. Look at that, that's a ball of solder. Because, I mean, if you have OCD like I do, yeah, you want everything to look literally new. So I'm gonna go around it one more time. And so as not to bore you, I'll switch to the next method after that. All right. So in the end, you really want to see all of these with these silver, or I guess that's silver, or maybe it's just copper. I don't know. But these round rings, that's where the solder goes to when you put the new jack in there. You want to see all of these with these rings intact. If you pull those rings off, then you've got another mess on your hands. Okay, stand by. Okay, so I've flipped it over now, and you'll see that some of this, especially right here, you can't even tell how tall that is, but I can tell you it's like 2 millimeters high, which doesn't sound like terribly a lot, except for the fact that it's way more on there than you should have, but it just came through the other side. So we're going to try to hit this from this side to see if we can get a little better result. If you notice, there's a couple of these that we did really, really nicely through the other side. That back one, that's super important. That will make this whole thing work. A lot of the other ones are redundant, like ground and whatnot. Look at that one. I'm sorry, that one. Looking good. Okay, so we're going to try to hit these over here first. This shouldn't move too much because now I'm coming from this side, the top of the board. It's a lot of solder. It doesn't want to melt so much right away. There it goes. There it goes. It'd be cool if they had some sort of invention where you could have a solder wick that cuts itself and replaces itself automatically. That would be kind of neat. All right, let's see if I can show you what that one just did. That one just fixed itself, or should I say it all the solder pulled out. So we're going to try to hit this one here. Maybe that will do the same. Not quite. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do it right. And this right here, this part, I don't think is really lack of experience, because I've not been doing the micro soldering routinely terribly long, but I think it has more to do with just trying to do it right. There we go, look at that. So we got this one here to do. See if we can get that one. If you stare at the wick, you'll see that when it starts to turn silver, that means we got it. But I don't know. All right, so there's still more. All right, so I'm going to work on this a little bit off camera, because I know it's just the same old stuff. So just hang tight. Be right back. Okay, I'm going to show you another device that is used. I've got most of it done with the solder wick, but sometimes it's kind of like you're pushing it through this way, and then you flip it over and you're pushing it back down. You don't always get all the solder, but this is a solder sucker. What it does is you push down like this, it's spring loaded, and then you put something on here, or you put this on a hole that you're trying to desolder. You heat it up, and then you put it on there and hit this button, and it basically sucks the solder up. I'll give you an idea. It's hard to see, but well, it forms a seal and it pulls it through. So I am going to attempt to do this. It's a little difficult because of the angle like that, and then this is in the way, but I think I might be able to do it like that. Okay, so stand by. Okay, this is kind of a cool angle because you can see the work that I've done so far. This is where those two plastic tabs were. And then these are actually holes where it was soldered. And you can see how clean that is. This is ideal. But then the one that might have been a little bit of a pain were, remember this one here is something else from the other side. But this one, and to an extent this one were being pains. So I'm going to try to hit that with my solder sucker and some heat. So I'm going to put that over there. Okay. It's difficult because on the one hand I'm right-handed, but yeah, so we've got to figure out the best way to hold this. All right, here we go. So as soon as I'm going to try to hit that one first. All right, once we see that, that means it's liquefied. Well, see, it takes a little coordination here. All right. Interesting. All right. I'm going to try it. Here we go. No. See, it's difficult because I'm looking at the screen and then trying to get everything where it needs to go. There we go. We got one. So now we got two left. These two. There we go. Alright, now I'm getting it down. Alright, so we're going to hit this one right here. I'm going to melt it, then I'm going to put this on there, hit the button. Here we go. Hopefully we get it. One try. We're looking for it to be liquefied. Can't tell if it is or not. I'm guessing it has to be at this point. No. Alright. Is that liquefied? Oh, it is. Okay. All right, here we go. One more time. All right, I'm going to try with my other hands here. My right hand. See if I can get that. All right. Ta-da! Holy crap. It can be a pain. So, I mean, this has been way longer than it needs to be, this video. But that's okay. The technique is what we're trying to show here. So, now, once we get the new one, we just pop it in there and we're good to go. You know, I don't so much like that last one, so I'm going to hit that with solder wick one more time. Just to get just that last little bit out of there, hopefully. See if we can see some silver in that wick. Once we start seeing, there we go. See that? Once that silver shows up, that means it's good to go. All right. So we've got all the holes. I mean, of course, it's not perfect, but when it comes down to it, it is pretty near perfect. So there's little bits and solder here from the solder sucker. So I'm going to go over this one more time, just over the top with some wick, just to kind of clean it up a little bit, and then we'll actually clean it. Okay. You'll see what I mean. You've got little bits and pieces of solder, so we'll just kind of run this around a little bit. Pick up anything that's kind of laying around solder-wise. All right. Yeah, that looks good. Is that one full of solder? No. Okay. And then, last but not least, we're going to clean it up with some alcohol. Okay, so I had to get alcohol. So, a little alcohol in there. Q-tip. I'm not a huge fan of a Q-tip in this situation because it leaves filament or strands of Q-tip behind. But it works. And then I'll do from the other side. There you go. Now you can get a really good sense of what's been done and how clean it is. It's basically back to factory. Once that flux is gone and all these holes are cleared out, yeah, it took a while, but I mean, it literally doesn't get better than that. Ooh, that's gross. Yeah, so to clean that off, is it a big deal? No. Is it going to cause any problems? Absolutely not. Okay. So there we go. Now, I do have the old one here. It's, let's see if I can get a good angle here. Yeah, it's still got solder on it and stuff. But when you get your new one, you want to be able to just push it right through. And that's exactly what we got. Look at that. That's what you want. When you put the new one in, you want it to just be able to push it right through. Of course, you can't on this one because it's got solder like right there. Like right there. But the new one, you'll pop it through, you'll hold it, you'll tack down, you know, a couple. Let's say push it all the way through, hit a little solder here, hit a little solder there. Then you can let go of it and you can solder all of these and it will be good to go. So that's how you do it. That's how you prep for a replacement. And to think of how many jobs I've turned down before I got this equipment that I currently have. Anyway, if you like this, please feel free to subscribe. And you know, I'm very new at this, so I don't have a ton of followers, but I did get a couple of emails and things, and that's very nice. I appreciate you guys who watch this. And I guess that is that. So have a great weekend, and we'll do something else in the next video. See ya.